Hello, welcome to Two Rivers Tuesday. We are happy to be back with a new season. This is a little different today only because yesterday I got sick, so today we're doing it on Zoom.
Yes, that's right. We are on Zoom and I'm getting some major pandemic vibes here.
Oh,
It's
triggered.
not good. It's not good. Um, and it is a little like speaking of pandemic and sickness, it is a little there's some controversy here onto whether you were actually sick or not, right?
Yes, yeah. I'm not sure. I either had a stomach bug that would have been extremely contagious and our whole staff would have been sick if I was in the office today, or my theory is that I had some bad vitamins.
Bad vitamins.
Some bad vitamins. I had some vitamins sitting out for like 2.5 years, and I decided yesterday was a good day to take
It's gonna be a
them.
good
And my
day.
body, yeah, my body wasn't used to any of them. I thought like all 10 at once for this new
Uh,
year, new me. I'm gonna be healthy, and it made me just so sick.
New year, new me, old vitamins.
Yes, on the
Reminds me of the
cheap.
Bon Jovi song, Bad Vitamins. Your love is like bad vitamins. Isn't that how it goes? No, it's bad medicine.
That is not ringing any bells for me.
It's
So,
not.
anyways,
Okay. Let's move on.
we're on Zoom today, but
Yeah.
in the future for Two Rivers Tuesday, we will hopefully be back in person, Lord willing, and you'll be able to see the bobblehead that you can't see at the moment.
Oh yeah. And we're just so glad to have you back, Maggie. I should just say that. We tried to soldier on while you were on maternity leave. I
Y'all
think
did awesome.
we did 3 or 4 episodes and then I was just like, okay, we need to give up because Maggie's not here. And Maggie's what makes this so great. So I am thrilled that you're back. And that is why I was determined that we were going to do this, bad
Yes,
vitamins or no, right?
yes.
So I'm glad that you're feeling better and that you are zooming in from a model home somewhere. So that's great.
This
At
is
least
my
that's what
house.
it looks like in the background. Yeah, a
I
model
did
home.
clean it up. I did clean it up a little bit. But yes, I'm happy to be back. You all were very generous to give me maternity leave, and we enjoyed that time adjusting to having three children, and I'm very thankful to be back.
Hey, what's so give us a little highlight from just um the transition from 2 to 3 and just how the girls, Ellis and Evelyn, were able to welcome Eden home. Tell us about
Hmm.
that.
Yes, I mean, I have just been so overwhelmed by how much Ellis and Evelyn love Eden. I like talk about it a lot because it just blows us away every day how much they love her. Like it just is beyond what we could have expected. So when we brought her home, it was immediately like this a million sugars is what they call it. They just give her kisses all day long, and anytime Eden is like out of her room, she's just being bombarded with sugars.
I
And
love
it
it.
kind of becomes like a disciplinary issue because it's like mommy needs space, Eden needs space. She doesn't need someone all over her 24/7. But it's been so sweet to see them both just step into their roles as big sisters and be so helpful and loving. And it's just the sweetest thing ever.
I love that. Praise God.
Yes. Yes. It's such a gift. All right. So, like we said, new year, new season of the podcast. What are you excited about for 2024?
Gosh, well, personally, I'm excited about just the new. It just feels like a clean slate, no matter whether you're a New Year's resolution person or not. There's something about flipping the calendar over in your mind at the very least, and just saying, "Hey, I got a new start here." So whatever I may have sort of slacked off on in my life, whether and it's usually connected to diet and exercise, but it might just be reading, and you just got sucked into the Christmas season and the movies and the shows and all the things. And here we are, we got this fresh new season. It's just a great opportunity to start new. And so that's one of the things that I love about the new year. So I get excited about that. From a church standpoint, I think that we've got some big things on the horizon, and I am excited about how God is wanting to call us into more. And
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot to say about that, but that's all I'll say about it right now. How
Yes.
about
Are
you?
you I love the new year. I'm the same. I think it's a refreshing just restart on the things, the habits that kind of started to wither away. Yeah, it's just like New Morning Mercies, but it's on like a grander scale for like New Year mercies. So
Yeah.
I just enjoy kind of like trying again, receiving the grace for where I fell short in 2023, and just moving forward and trying new things in 2024. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, are you a word of the year person?
I can be, I have been, and my challenge is that you know how you always stump me because you ask me at the beginning of these podcasts, like, hey, what's your favorite or what is the best? And then I'm like totally
What is the
frozen
word?
because I have to have the right answer for you. And I don't
Hmm.
know if I could really say the best. So it's like, what's the word of my year? I'm like, oh my gosh, if I pick that, if that's the word, then there can be no other words, right? And I just get locked into that because I'm
What is one
complicated.
of your words? Is
Oh, thanks,
that
Maggie.
better?
Well, it's believe. And that's a part of why we went where we did in the sermon on Sunday. But I just feel like the Lord's calling me to believe him. And it's kind of like, wait a second, God, I do believe in you. And yet there's a lot that I think I believe that perhaps I don't believe as evidenced by my life. And so I think there's
Hmm.
an invitation to me and to all of us in 2024 to find those places where perhaps we don't truly believe and realize that if we did, things could be different. So,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. That is yeah, that's where what we talked about on Sunday. And so we wanna have that conversation. But before we get there, I need one more question for you. What
oh
is
boy,
the scariest thing you've ever done? Like
these,
physical
oh,
danger, not like it was scary to move your family to water plant this church, but like
okay.
physically you were in danger.
Yes, the scariest thing I've ever done physically, the first thing that comes to my mind is that when I was in college in Murfreesboro, there was a rock quarry. And it was like super deep and it's full of water at this point, but not full of water. Like there's water way down there, which kind of makes you wonder like how far down did they dig? How deep really is this water? But I would say that the ledge of the rock quarry was at it was, I mean, it was somewhere between 60 and 80 feet high. It was a long way down. And we went there one day and my friends were jumping off and I was scared to death to do it, but I didn't want to be the only guy at the top who
Yeah.
didn't. And so I did. That's kind of like I said on Sunday, like I'm really risk averse until I'm not. And sometimes that moment of being not is the power of, I mean, you can look at it one or two ways, right? Positive or negative peer pressure. But I didn't want to miss out on that moment and be the only guy who didn't do it. So that's probably the scariest thing I've ever done physically. What about you?
Well, I have a couple of questions. Did it hurt when you hit the water?
I mean, the smack from what I remember was loud and painful. Yes.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, one thing that comes to mind is when I was in high school, I jumped off a bridge into the lake, and I remember that that was dangerous and scary. And
Mm.
I also remember that we did not have anyone go down. Like the smart thing to do is to at least have like a swimmer, like swim that water below and test like, is there a tree here instead of water? We did not do that. We just jumped in blind, and thankfully everything was okay. Another scary thing I did was as an adult, as a pregnant adult, I did what's called a via ferrata, which is um, kind of like rock climbing up a really steep like mountain face. You hook yourself onto this like steel cable that runs up the mountain face. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you move along and basically climb the face of a mountain, but you have to clip yourself in to continue climbing. And it
Wow.
was scary
Yeah.
and very difficult, but so
Did
fun. Go ahead.
did you look down?
Oh yeah. It was like the most beautiful thing. It's probably one of my like favorite things I've ever done in life because it
Mm,
was so beautiful and so amazing. And just like the thrill of that adventure was amazing.
there's
It's
truth in that.
actually, yes, it's actually one of my New Year's resolutions is to like do more dangerous things because I love doing stuff like that. And as a mom, like that's not always what my days look like. And but it's really like I think important for my overall well-being to do things like that from time to time. So Jake is encouraging me to plan like things like that I'm going to do and have fun and take risks, and it's so fun.
Adventure. I love it.
Yes, yeah. So we're talking about that because that connects to what we talked about on Sunday for sure. So we started a new series. Our new series is called Dangerous Prayers. So tell us, what are these four prayers and why are they dangerous?
Yeah. So the four prayers we're going to talk about that we find in the Bible um, are help my unbelief. And we talked about that on Sunday. Search my heart, break my heart, and make me bold.
Mm-hmm,
And those prayers are dangerous because in order to really pray those and receive from the Lord what he wants to say in that, we are opening ourselves up and risking our comfort zones. We're
mm-hmm,
risking our control on things. We're risking and saying like, "Hey, I actually, there may be more that I'm not experiencing, and that might be scary. You know, it doesn't feel
mm-hmm,
safe. Those don't feel like safe prayers. Those are not safe prayers. They're not
mm-hmm,
boring prayers. Those can be very dangerous prayers. Of course, what I said on Sunday is that danger can often be on the other side of the coin of adventure, right?
mm-hmm,
And or trust. You know, that can feel really dangerous when you've been hurt before, right? Or believe it, that can feel dangerous. Faith, if someone's word was for the year was faith, I mean, that can feel dangerous because there may be repercussions if you really walk into that. And that's why we call them dangerous
mm-hmm.
prayers.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of times we think in terms of like risk reward. So like
Mm,
is this worth the risk? What is on the other side of this risk and will it be worth it to me? And I
yeah.
think what's beautiful about these all of these prayers is that like it is so worth risking. The reward of the life that Jesus is drawing us into, and the adventure that he wants to go on with us and the journey that we'll get to do with him, partnering with like what he's doing in the world, that reward is so worth the risk of praying these prayers. And I think if
Yes.
we are honest, all of us get bored with the mundane or with like what we settle for with our walks with Jesus. And so I
Mm,
think if that resonates with you of like, yeah, like I do want more. This is kind of boring. Like I feel like I've settled for just a surface level walk with Jesus.
yeah.
If that resonates with you, yeah, we encourage you to pray these dangerous prayers and to really lean into them. I think it's so exciting to just imagine where Jesus will take our church family this year as we like take these risks and pray these prayers. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited about this series.
I just wanted to say something that I said on Sunday. I just want to sort of say it again. Our lives are perfectly designed right now to give us the results we're currently getting. Right. So it's
Mm-hmm,
like your diet right now is perfectly structured to give you exactly what you're getting. Right. And so if you
mm-hmm.
don't like the result, then you got to
Yeah,
change what you're doing.
exactly.
And I know that sounds really simple and yet it's revolutionary. Like, okay, if if I want more in my relationship with Jesus, I shouldn't just keep doing the same thing and expect something
Mm-hmm.
different to happen. I need to do
Yeah.
something different. And maybe it starts with praying uh, what could feel like a risky, dangerous prayer.
Yeah. One of the things he said on Sunday was, I'm done with boring and I'm done with this digital world. And I
Mm,
think that one of the biggest enemies to us praying these dangerous prayers and leaning into what Jesus is calling us is that digital world. And so I
yeah.
think that New Year, a lot of us probably do have resolutions around our phones and screen times and how our habits in that area. But I think this is like a really fresh moment to capitalize on setting some boundaries with our phones and with our screens and replacing those habits with these prayers. I've heard it called like, it's like habit stacking or habit replacing or something like that, where it's like, you have an existing habit of looking at your phone or doing whatever it is you go to do on your phone. If you mentally say, okay, I'm replacing that habit that I already have with this new habit of praying this prayer, then that's a really easy way for your mind to cue into this new habit that you want to set in stone of praying this prayer. So if that would be helpful for you listening, I think that that's what I'm trying to do, is replace some of those old screen habits with praying these prayers instead.
Yeah, love it.
So on Sunday, the main prayer that we talked about was, I believe, help my unbelief. And this comes from Mark 9, the father who Jesus is about to heal his son. And Jesus says, do you believe that I can do it? And he's like, yes and no. I believe, but help my unbelief. And I think that that is pretty much sums up the Christian life is, I believe, but help my unbelief. And so we
Absolutely.
kind of expanded this out to, it's not just a matter of if you believe Jesus can heal, but this can apply to so many of the things in our walks with Jesus that require us to have faith. So let's talk about some of the other things that we have a hard time believing. What are some promises that John Teague has a hard time believing, and you have to kind of fight to believe those promises and fight to work them deeper and deeper into your heart?
Yeah. Um, I think, and I don't have a verse that I'll call to mind right now that is the address for this promise, but a truth in the gospel is that um, I have been approved by God. And yet I so struggle to believe that. And so I try to find my approval in everyone else. Like I just am desperate for that. And and so that is one of those like I believe that God approves of me because of his son Jesus and his perfect life and his death that was on the cross like for me, and so I know that I am approved. He has welcomed me. He's adopted me into his family. He's awakened my heart, like, and he knows every bad thing about me, and yet he approves of me. And for some reason that's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Lord, I believe that, but help my unbelief when I go running around like, hoping that you will approve of me. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe I won't say the hard thing because I don't want you to not approve of me. Or maybe I'm afraid to even try because I might fail and then people won't approve of me. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a big one for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that is true of all of us. It's like, I get this mentally, I can cognitively say, I agree with this truth, but it's a whole nother thing for it to sink down so deep into who you are that it changes all of your motivations and all of your actions. And so I
Yeah.
think that's the prayer here is, okay, I get it. I agree. I believe this, but help me really believe it.
I'll give you another
One,
one
yeah.
before you, but I want to hear one from you. But I'll give you one more just because I want to give a shout out to our reading plan that you created, Maggie, that I think is so good and it's simple. And whether you need a plan and have no plan, or you have a plan and you just want to add this to it, you can do it because you're reading one, maybe two verses a day,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just thinking about this prayer that we're praying each week. And so this morning, we're reading in Isaiah on Tuesday morning. I think it's Isaiah 26, and how God keeps in perfect peace the person whose mind is stayed on him or is focused on him. And so there's a promise there that when I'm thinking about him, I can have peace, right? And yet I
Mm-hmm.
so struggle because my mind immediately wanders to what ifs and worst case scenarios
Mm-hmm.
and what about this and the call of the promise is like keep your mind on who God is and what he can do, and you will have peace. Not, it doesn't mean like, hey, he'll keep in perfect peace he who has no bad things going on in life, right? Like it's no, he keeps us in perfect peace when our mind is stayed on him no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. One promise that I have found myself needing to more fully believe is just the promise that God will keep being gracious in the future. So the way that like looks for me is anytime there's like a changing season up ahead where I know like, okay, Jake's schedule is about to change, or we're having another baby, or just it can be like small or big, but something about my life in the future is about to change, I can get really anxious. And
Mm.
the unbelief is that I start to believe that God won't be gracious to the future Maggie that's like in that change. And I start to believe like, oh, God will, that's going to be really, really bad. That like that season's going to be hard. It's not going to be good. And
Yeah.
based the unbelief is I am believing that God will stop being good to me then, and God's
Mm.
grace won't continue into the future, and He won't sustain me in the future. And so I think for people who have a hard time with changes or just fear of the future in general, the promise that God is who he says he is now, and he'll continue to be who he says he is in the future. And we can have confidence in God's future grace to sustain us through those changes and to still be good to us in that season is really comforting to me. But I have a hard time fully believing it, if I'm honest.
Wow, that's really good. We all need that.
All right, so let's talk about how this works practically.
Mm.
If we start to kind of become aware of, oh, I must not fully believe this truth because my life is showing that I believe it on one level, but not fully. How do we work those truths deeper and deeper into our hearts? How do we grow in our faith in those truths? What are some practical ways we can do that?
Well, let me start at the surface and then maybe we can keep digging and adding or, adding more layers, whatever the metaphor
Mm-hmm.
is. I think that just so reading God's word and then asking the question like where do I not how do I not believe this? Like right, like
Mm-hmm.
that's significant because that's going to identify some things and what does it look like to not believe this? And I think that in turn is going to help you start to think like, okay, so what now to answer your question, what can I do to begin to believe this, right? And it may be I need to memorize this promise,
Mm-hmm.
or I need to dig deeper into what this is and what God says about it in His Word, because it's going to be life to me and it's going to help me believe it. That
Yeah,
was
I
my
think that's
first
great.
thought.
Yeah. So you actually sent me a podcast. It's an Andy Crouch interview. And so,
Hmm.
listeners, if you're listening to us, I assume that you probably listen to other podcasts. So, I would encourage you to just search Andy Crouch and listen to him talk about anything because it's really, really good. But he has this thing where he is straight from scripture, but he talks about how, like, we as humans are heart, soul, mind, and body complexes made for love. And so, I think what kind of the disconnect here is that like not all of those components are fully believing a truth, and that's where we can start to kind of see like, oh, I don't fully believe that. How do I get that truth fully into my heart, my soul, my mind, and my body? And I think for me, one of the ways I've seen the Lord just be gracious to like fully plant a truth in like my whole person is when I'm doing something that's almost like involving all of those things. And so I've seen that when I am going for a run, there's something specific about using my body to run at the same time I'm listening to truth and like spending that time with the Lord. Something about like involving my whole person
Yeah.
in that experience helps those truths sink deeper and deeper into my heart and my soul, my mind, and my body. And then another way for me that I see it is even just like when I'm driving, like if I'm in the car alone and I am using my body like just enough to drive, something about that, it's almost just like my mind opens and my heart opens and my soul opens and is more receptive to truth thinking deeper and deeper into all of me. And so I think thinking through, okay, what are those things that I do where it just feels like the ground is really soft when I'm doing that, and the Lord can, and when I'm doing these things, or when I'm in that place, or whatever it is for you that in those moments the ground is really soft and the Lord can really put truth deep into you in those times.
Mm.
And I think the like most prime example of them all is when we gather together on a Sunday. So think about the Sunday morning gathering is involving all of who you are. It's involving your mind, it's involving your body, it's involving your heart and your soul. And that embodied experience and the truths that we hear and the truths that we sing, and you pair like music and the emotions of that experience, that whole thing is just the perfect recipe for helping yourself fully believe a truth. And so that's one of the hundreds of reasons that like gathering on a Sunday is so crucial for following
Yeah.
Jesus. It's because it's in that, perfect recipe where he really takes the truths that are hard to believe and he seals them in our hearts. So those are some of the things that come to mind for how we can believe more fully.
Yeah, I love that. It was way better than what I said, Maggie.
No, yes, that's great.
But you know what I was thinking as you were talking? I was thinking about just like that very just example of a Sunday morning gathering and it's thinking like I believe that Jesus is worthy of all of my praise, right?
Mm-hmm.
To help me in my unbelief as I am a little anxious or nervous about expressing my
Mm-hmm.
adoration to him,
Yeah.
whether it's through singing aloud or for some of us, it feels like it's a pretty scary thing to like, lift a hand in the air toward the heavens, or to open
Mm-hmm.
our like to just open our posture up to him in a new way. Something
Yeah.
that Jesse said on Sunday in one of the gatherings was, hey, as we are reflecting on these promises, take whatever posture you'd like. Maybe you want to
Mm-hmm.
stand, maybe you want to sit, maybe you want to lie prostrate on the ground and get on your face because you're so in awe of who God is. And those can feel those might be places where the Lord wants to invite you into more, and so
Yes.
it's engaging your body with this
Mm-hmm.
belief that he is so worthy of that praise.
Yes. Yeah, that's so good. Yeah. So, listeners, we just encourage you to maybe identify what that truth is that you want to first and foremost ask the Lord to do the work that only he can do and like
Mm.
putting that truth in your heart. But then join him in that effort, and this week ask, how can I involve my heart, my soul, my mind, my body into convincing my whole self that this is really true. And our prayer is that as a church family we will all get to start enjoying the reward of praying that risky prayer and putting the effort and the work into convincing yourself that it's really true. And we'll all get to enjoy the adventure together.
Amen to that.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, and we will be back next week, hopefully in person.
Yeah, thanks for putting up with our Zoom and our audio inconsistencies and my random sniffling through the first half. Yeah.
It's that time of the year. All right. We'll see you
'Tis the
next week.
season. See ya.